Hello everyone, my name is Beckett and welcome back to the channel. And today in Division 2 we're going to be taking a second look at the Recalibration library for any of those new players coming in 2021 looking for that year 2 content, or just someone who is getting back into the game and just trying to get back into the swing of things. As well as we're going to be answering a lot of questions that I get every day about the Recalibration library. So anything that you weren't sure about, you'll be able to find out there. And if you have more questions, go ahead and put them down in the comments. And as always, if you like the content, hit that subscribe, hit that like, hit that notification bell so you know when the latest videos are coming out. We cover Division 2 as well as many other looter shooters out in the genre. Now let's talk about the Recalibration library and what exactly it does. So anyone who is familiar with shooter looters, action RPGs, say Diablo 3, they're fairly used to how re-rolling different stats work on many games, and a lot of times we re-roll it and it will just re-roll it to a random stat, and it's not always the stat or the value we want, which can be a headache in itself. And a great thing that Massive has done is added the Recalibration library, and I wish more developers, whether it's shooter looters or those action RPGs, would add this feature. So basically anytime we want to recalibrate something, we have to first put it in the Recalibration library. Let's say it's a stat, I want status effects on my knee pads. Well, I'm going to have to find a piece of gear out in the world and extract that stat from that into my Recalibration library, and then I can then re-roll, say, status effects on knee pads and knee pads alone. Now it is worth mentioning, when you decide to extract a piece of gear into your Recalibration library, whatever piece you extract, that stat, that attribute, that talent, you will lose that piece of gear. It will be destroyed, forever gone. So if it's something you covet, a really nice piece of gear you like to use, it generally is not worth extracting. You can find a lot of bad pieces of gear with great talents or great stats. Now you've made the commitment, you decided to extract that piece of gear, you got your status effects from your knee pads. Now, can I then use that status effects on any piece of gear in the game? No, you can't use it on exotics, and you can only use it on knee pads because that's where you extracted it from. So if, let's say, I wanted to put status effects on my holster, I would have to go out in the world and find a holster that I didn't want, and I could extract that status effects, and then I could use that stat depending on how high the value is. So let's say if I found a holster with 2% status effects, I extracted it, then I could then use that extraction on any holster I wanted, but it would only be 2 status effects at any given point in time, but you can always upgrade that in the future. Now let's say we're back out in the open world and we are farming and we get a holster and it drops with 10% status effects. I can then go back to my Recalibration library and then extract that piece again, and if I want to, I can pull out that 10% status effects and it's max roll, and I don't ever have to worry about farming that status effects for the Recalibration library again. And then I can put 10% status effects on any holster I want in the future. Unlimited amount of times, unlimited uses. We don't have to worry about farming this piece over and over and over again. Now we do have a couple things that we can't extract, and that comes down to things like exotics. Of course, we wouldn't be able to do exotic talents. That would just be way too overpowered. But even just any attributes or anything else you have on exotics, you're not going to be able to do that. Now the same thing goes for named items as well, but it works a little bit differently. You are able to extract the talents or the attributes that are not part of the named item. But let's say we're looking at the Dark Winter SMG. You get the Perfect Killer, and it gives you 50% plus critical hit damage every time you get a kill. Now you're not going to be able to extract that talent, but you would be able to do the critical hit chance, the SMG damage, any of those you can extract. Now before we hop over into the questions, there is one thing I do want to mention. If you have anything you want to keep, make sure you always mark it as favorite, even if it's inside your stash. It is not safe from the extraction process in the Recalibration library. You may start extracting and be doing so many different things, you're not realizing that you're extracting things that you actually want to keep in your stash. So just go into your inventory, mark it as favorite. All right, now let's hop over into the questions. Now these are a lot of questions that I get asked almost every day, and we're just going to go through each one, and some may have to do with the Recalibration station, but most of them have to do with the Recalibration library. So this first one is, I just put 15% weapon damage on my weapon and now I can't seem to change the attribute or the talent anymore. Is this normal? Yes, so you can only recalibrate one item on one piece of gear. Once you've done that, it's set in that way. There is no going back. you're just stuck with that. So make sure whatever you recalibrate, make sure it is the stat you want. Now, if you decide to recalibrate something in the same row, let's say I wanted damage to target out of cover, and then I changed my mind, I wanted damage to armor on that weapon. Now you're able to do that. Same thing if it was a talent. Let's say I wanted fast hands on my AR instead of Optimist, I can always change those two out. But let's say I wanted to change my damage to target out of cover to damage to armor, and then all of a sudden I realize I can't change the talent. So you are stuck in place with that. But anything in the same row, you can change as many times as you see fit. All right, our next question is, when you've extracted a stat and added it to your library, can you replace that stat with a better one in the library? Yes, you can always replace it as long as it's not a max roll. Let's say I wanted 15% assault rifle damage, but I only have 10% in my library right now, but I got a gun that I really don't like that much. I can just extract that 15% and then I can re-roll all my other weapons that are available to do that in that slot. But ideally, in this time of the game, we would be more looking for optimization and re-rolling certain stats, but we'll get into that in another video. All right, our third question is, can I reset or recover my attributes from my gear after re-rolling? So you can't recover any of those stats, you can't reset them. You might have been able to do it in the past. I've been told you could before Gear 2.0, but with the recalibration library, there is no way of going back. Once you're set in place, you're set in place. So if I re-roll a talent from damage to armor to damage to target out of cover, I can't reset that back and re-roll a different talent or a different stat. You are just stuck there. So just make sure you're making your decisions wisely. All right, on to the next question. So I have different stats or talents in my recal library. Do I still need another piece of gear to recalibrate something? Yes. So you're only saving that stat or that attribute in your recal library for a future recalibration on a different piece of gear. Just remember that you still need another piece of gear. You're going to lose whatever piece of gear you decide to extract. Do not forget that. Now our last question is, so I have things in my recalibration library, but I can't recalibrate anything. So it is probably a couple things. Like I said, maybe you have that stat or that attribute on a piece of gear, but you do not have it in your library for the piece of gear that you are trying to recalibrate, or you are too low level. There is a lot of people who aren't up to level 30 or up to level 40 yet, and they are trying to recalibrate a piece of gear. They must be at max level. Other than that, you may be missing some different materials, but usually the game will tell you what you are missing and you will just need to fix that. And generally it's something small, something feels kind of stupid and makes you feel kind of stupid. I've been there. Do not worry. Now, if you have any other questions about the recalibration library, any tips or anything you want to let me know, put it down in the comments. Now, if you're looking for other videos, I do Division 2 content. I do build videos, tutorials, cover Division 2 news, as well as other shooter looter games in the genre. And as always, thanks again for watching.